You know, you probably spent actual money this past weekend trying to poison a dandelion on your lawn.
Almost certainly. Most people do.
Right. And you were likely completely unaware that you were actively killing a plant with like way higher nutritional density and liver detoxifying power than almost anything currently sitting in your kitchen.
Yeah, it's actually tragic when you think about it.
It really is. So today we are looking at the forgotten pantries of our ancestors. We're doing a deep dive into this incredible, comprehensive source detailing 20 ancient foods, roots, and herbs.
Right, to really understand exactly how modern biochemical research is, well, finally catching up to millennia of ancestral observation.
Exactly. And honestly, it's the perfect time to look at this material because we are currently trapped in this really profound health paradox.
You really are.
Oh.
The source we're looking at lays out this fascinating contradiction, right? Like, right now, you have access to more food, more calories, and more engineered dietary precision than any generation in human history.
I mean, you walk into a grocery store and the aisles are just engineered for absolute abundance.
Exactly. Yet, population-wide, we're dealing with totally unprecedented levels of chronic illness.
Yeah.
We're seeing unrelenting fatigue, systemic inflammation, and just a pervasive biological unease that, honestly, modern diagnostics often struggle to even pinpoint, let alone cure with, a standard prescription.
Which really highlights a central contrast in our source material today. I feel like modern medicine generally operates like reading the cliff notes of human health.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right, because it's fast, it's targeted. You get a headache, you take a pill, the localized symptom is silenced, but you completely skip the context of the whole story.
Yeah, the underlying cause is totally ignored.
Right, and our ancestors didn't have the cliff notes. They had to read the entire multi-generational book. They relied on observation, trial, loss, and just immense patience.
Well, they didn't have mass spectrometers to isolate a specific flavonoid. They just watched how the earth responded to disease. They observed which specific root lowered a fever or which leaf helped a body recover from a brutal winter, and they passed that data down.
So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt, I don't know, a bit overwhelmed by the glowing screens dictating your diet.
Which is all of us, honestly.
Totally. Or if you've felt that quiet, unnamed unease in your own body, this deep dive is for you. We're exploring how the science validates the tradition. So let's start right at the perimeter, the ancient protectors.
Yes. First lines of defense.
Right. Before antibiotics, how did populations survive microbial threats? The source points us straight to garlic.
You really can't look at ancestral immunology without garlic. And the historical applications were just incredibly pragmatic.
I was reading that the builders of the Egyptian pyramids consumed massive daily rations of it just for stamina under those punishing physical conditions.
Yeah, and Greek soldiers took it into battle. It was also a primary defense against infectious plagues in ancient Chinese medicine.
We tend to think of it just as like a flavor base for pasta.
Right, but the biochemistry here is basically chemical warfare.
Wait, really? Chemical warfare?
Seriously.
Yeah.
The active compound, allicin, isn't actually meant for us.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, allicin is a soil microbe defense mechanism. It's the plant's evolutionary armor against soil-borne pathogens like bacteria and fungi that want to consume the garlic bulb.
Oh, wow. So when we ingest it, we are effectively co-opting that defense system.
Exactly. Clinical studies now show allicin drastically upregulates our immune system's macrophage activity. It lowers blood pressure by dilating blood vessels and literally disrupts the cell walls of invading bacteria.
That is wild. But the source highlights a really crucial cooking tip that fundamentally changes how this works, and I think a lot of people mess this up.
They absolutely do.
You can't just chop a clove and throw it immediately into a hot pan. You have to crush it and then leave it completely alone for exactly 10 minutes.
Yeah, that 10-minute pause is a non-negotiable biochemical requirement.
Why? What's happening in those 10 minutes?
Well, allicin doesn't actually exist in an intact garlic clove. The clove contains a compound called allicin and an enzyme called allinase, but they are stored in entirely separate cellular compartments.
Oh, so you have to physically crush the cell walls to mix them together.
Exactly. And if you apply heat immediately, you denature the enzyme before it can even synthesize the allicin.
So it's this tiny 10-minute ritual for a massive physiological upgrade. I love that. So that's bacterial defense. But when we look at cellular and viral shields, the source groups elderberry and astragalus together.
Yeah, let's examine elderberry first, which, by the way, traces its documented use all the way back to Hippocrates.
That's a long resume.
Right. Elderberries are packed with specific anthocyanins. And these aren't just generic antioxidants. Modern virology shows that these compounds actually bind to viral glycoproteins.
Wait, so they physically block the virus?
Yes. By doing that, they physically interfere with a virus's ability to pierce the walls of healthy human cells, which is exactly why clinical trials show elderberry significantly reduces both the duration and severity of respiratory infections.
And incorporating it is incredibly simple, right? The source recommends just simmering dried elderberries into a syrup with honey and cinnamon.
Yeah, super easy and actually delicious.
But then there's astragalus, which seems to operate on a totally different level. It's not just blocking invaders, it's protecting the cellular blueprint itself.
Astragalus root is fascinating. In traditional Chinese medicine, it's a foundational ketonic, meaning it builds vital energy.
Right, and traditionally you slowly simmer slices of the root into broths and soups to extract the active polysaccharides and then remove the tough root before eating.
Exactly. And what we now know about those specific polysaccharides is that they directly interact with telomerase.
Okay, break that down for us. Telomerase.
All right, so telomerase is the enzyme responsible for maintaining telomere length. Every time a cell divides, its telomeres shorten, which is a primary driver of biological aging.
So shorter telomeres equal older cells.
Yes. And astragalus extracts have been shown to upregulate telomerase activity, essentially slowing down that cellular degradation.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. If elderberry acts as an active shield against incoming viruses, astragalus seems to operate like a preservation system for the cell's core integrity. Are we basically just borrowing the plant's own self-defense mechanisms to survive our winters?
We are absolutely adopting millions of years of botanical problem solving. Every time you consume these compounds, you are digesting successful evolutionary code.
Digesting evolutionary code. I love that phrasing. Which brings us to a different kind of biological problem. Protecting against outside invaders is one thing, but how did our ancestors manage internal wear and tear?
What we now call chronic inflammation.
Right, and I think we need to think of it less like a localized fire and more like a biological alarm system that's been jammed in the on-in position, constantly sending out chemical distress signals.
That's a very accurate way to picture it.
Oh.
And to switch that alarm off, ancient systems relied on warming roots, primarily turmeric and ginger.
Yeah, in Ayurvedic tradition, the use of turmeric, known as haldi, went far beyond diet. I read they bathed brides in turmeric paste before their weddings to purify the skin and spirit.
It was deeply ingrained in the culture.
And centuries before anyone could map a nerve pathway, ancient Chinese sailors were literally chewing ginger to completely neutralize seasickness.
And the clinical validation for both of these intuitions is just staggering today. Turmeric contains curcumin, and ginger contains gingerol.
And they're not just mild remedies, right?
No, not at all. Curcumin doesn't just broadly reduce swelling. It actively inhibits specific enzymes, like COX-2 and 5-LOX, which are the primary catalysts for your body's inflammatory cascade.
Wait, isn't that exactly what over-the-counter NSAIDs do, like ibuprofen?
It is exactly what they do. But curcumin does it without damaging the stomach lining.
That's incredible.
And gingerol works by directly agonizing the 5-HT3 serotonin receptors in the gut, which immediately suppresses the physiological signaling for nausea and localized inflammation.
So they resolve the issue at the receptor level without the heavy liver burden of pharmaceuticals.
Precisely.
But there is a massive catch with turmeric, and the source is very clear on this. The traditional practice of simmering turmeric in warm milk, like golden milk, is great, but if you don't add a pinch of black pepper, you are essentially wasting your time.
It all comes down to bioavailability. The human liver actually recognizes curcumin as a foreign substance and aggressively metabolizes it through a process called glucuronidation.
So it just flushes it out before your body can even use it.
Exactly. But black pepper contains piperine. Piperine temporarily inhibits that specific liver enzyme.
Just a tiny pinch.
Just a tiny pinch of black pepper boosts the bioavailability of curcumin by 2,000%.
2,000%. That is insane. The plants literally have to work in tandem. And we see a similar metabolic synergy with cinnamon and licorice root, right?
Yeah.
Ceylon cinnamon was prized by Egyptian pharaohs and Roman emperors.
And we have to specify true Ceylon cinnamon, not the standard cassia variety on most grocery shelves. Ceylon contains polyphenols that essentially mimic insulin in the body.
Mimic insulin. How does that work?
They upregulate the insulin receptor kinase, which drastically improves your cell's ability to pull glucose out of the bloodstream. It provides profound metabolic regulation.
And then you pair that with licorice root, which Traditional Chinese medicine actually titles the Great Harmonizer.
Yes. Licorice root contains glycyrrhizin, which stimulates the production of mucin. It literally accelerates the repair of the mucosal lining in the digestive and respiratory tracts.
So it's healing the gut while the cinnamon handles the blood sugar.
Exactly. In ancient formulas, licorice was used to bind and harmonize the effects of harsher herbs, ensuring the body could digest the medicine without irritation.
Okay, but I have to push back here because this sounds almost too perfect. If cinnamon and licorice are optimizing blood sugar and healing the gut, it's really tempting to think we should just drink gallons of licorice tea every day.
Yeah, and the source provides a strict warning against exactly that mindset. You absolutely cannot overconsume licorice root.
Why not?
High doses of glycyrrhizin inhibit the enzyme that breaks down cortisol in the kidneys. This allows cortisol to bind to aldosterone receptors, which causes your body to retain sodium and excrete potassium.
Oh, which leads to dangerous spikes in blood pressure.
Exactly, proving that ancient medicine was always about balance.
It perfectly illustrates the ancestral philosophy. The poison, or in this case the medicine, is in the dose. It's about finding equilibrium, not maxing out a biological pathway.
It was never about the modern impulse of, if a little is good, a massive dose must be better.
Right. So if we are talking about internal equilibrium and managing the compounds we ingest, we have to look at the body's primary chemical processing plant, the liver.
Oh, the overworked filter.
Seriously. Let's be honest, the modern human liver bears a heavier metabolic burden today than at any point in history. It's filtering processed foods, environmental pollutants, daily alcohol.
It is severely overworked. And the profound irony highlighted in the source is that nature's most potent hepatoprotective medicines, the exact compounds that regenerate the liver, come from plants we actively try to eradicate from our lawns.
The disposable weeds. You're talking about milk thistle and dandelion.
Yes, milk thistle is this spiny, aggressive plant that grows wild in rocky terrain. Ancient Greek physicians utilized it specifically for liver failure.
Wow. And now we know why, right?
Right. Today we know the seeds contain silymarin. Silymarin physically alters the outer membrane of hepatocytes, your liver cells, preventing toxins from binding to the cell in the first place.
It's like a bouncer for your liver.
Basically. And it also drastically boosts the liver's production of glutathione, which is our master antioxidant.
Which brings us back to the dandelion you were poisoning on your lawn at the start of the show. Traditional European and Chinese systems utilize the entire plant.
They wasted nothing.
Right. The leaves deliver massive doses of potassium and vitamins K and A, vastly exceeding standard supermarket greens.
And the dandelion roots actively upregulate bile production, which helps the liver flush the toxins that silymarin just prevented from binding.
It's such a perfect system.
Yeah.
And the cooking tip here is great. You can roast and grind dandelion root to create a dark, bitter, caffeine-free tea that functions as a daily stimulant for liver function.
It's an incredible synergy. And the source actually clusters 3 more of these deeply misunderstood weeds together: burdock, chicory, and nettle.
I see burdock root a lot as gobo in Japanese cuisine.
Yes, and both burdock and chicory root are densely packed with inulin. Inulin is a specific type of fructan, a prebiotic fiber.
Now, our ancestors obviously didn't have the terminology for the gut microbiome.
No, they didn't know the word microbiome, but they instinctively knew these roots brought vitality. Inulin resists human stomach acid, travels down to the lower gut, and selectively ferments to feed good gut bacteria, specifically bifidobacteria.
So chicory, which was famously used as a cheap coffee substitute during historical periods of rationing, was secretly fortifying the population's microbiome all along.
It's amazing how that works out. And then there's stinging nettle.
Oh, nettle is fascinating. Roman soldiers intentionally lashed their limbs with fresh nettle to stimulate blood flow and warm themselves on freezing marches.
Yeah, the fresh plant defends itself with formic acid, which causes that intense burning sensation. But once you apply heat or dry the leaves, that acid is completely neutralized.
And it transforms into a profound superfood. Once it's cooked, nettle delivers massive bioavailable iron and calcium, and modern assays show it actively downregulates inflammatory cytokines.
Fighting arthritis pain without the drowsiness of over-the-counter medication.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The very things we aggressively spray weed killer on in our yards are the exact things our overworked livers are desperate for. It's literally throwing away the instruction manual because you don't like the font.
That is a brilliant way to put it. We've prioritized a manicured aesthetic over easily accessible, highly evolved botanical medicine.
All right, so we've addressed the physical toxins and the internal inflammation, but modern life subjects us to an entirely different class of toxin. A relentless barrage of mental pressure, digital noise, and chronic stress.
This is a really critical transition. Modern medicine frequently isolates mental stress as a secondary psychological issue.
Like it's just in your head.
Right. But ancestral medicine instinctively understood that physical healing is physiologically impossible when the autonomic nervous system is locked in a sympathetic fight-or-flight state.
A body in alarm cannot heal. Which leads us to the adaptogens. The source highlights ashwagandha and holy basil, which is known as tulsi.
Ashwagandha is incredible.
I love the translation. Ashwagandha translates from Sanskrit to the smell of the horse, which is meant to imply it grants the vitality and resilience of a stallion.
It's very descriptive. And what makes an adaptogen unique is that it modulates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis.
So it's not just a sedative.
No, ashwagandha, or Withania somnifera, doesn't just mask anxiety. It actively dampens the release of cortisol from the adrenal glands.
Yeah.
Clinical data shows it directly improves sleep architecture and mental resilience by preventing the endocrine system from overreacting to external stressors.
It's basically raising the threshold of what causes your body to panic.
Exactly.
And tulsi. In India, it's revered as the incomparable one.
Tulsi modulates that same HPA axis, but it does so through a much gentler aromatic path. It has this unique profile of volatile oils, like eugenol.
Ah, so the smell is part of the medicine.
Yes, these aromatic compounds interface directly with the olfactory receptors in the limbic system, providing an almost immediate calming effect on the nervous system. It's traditionally steeped as a daily tea to consistently regulate stress hormones.
I find it so fascinating how these plants tackle the physical degradation caused by mental strain, and that connection is even more apparent with reishi mushroom and hawthorn berry.
Reishi, historically called the mushroom of immortality, was highly restricted in ancient China. It was actually reserved for emperors to calm the spirit.
Talk about a VIP medicine. And it contains a complex matrix of beta-glucans and triterpenes, right?
It does.
And the beta-glucans are binding to macrophage receptors to modulate the immune system.
Exactly. They prime the immune system for stress without overstimulating it, while the triterpenes exert a profound soothing effect on the central nervous system.
But the hawthorn berry is what really stands out in this section for me. European herbalists explicitly prescribed hawthorn to treat hearts that were weakened by grief.
It's so poetic, isn't it?
It is. They were directly linking emotional trauma to cardiovascular strain.
And the biochemical validation for that intuition is just beautiful.
Yeah.
Extreme grief and stress constrict blood vessels and spike blood pressure. Hawthorn berries are incredibly rich in specific flavonoids that trigger the endothelial cells lining your blood vessels to release nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide, that dilates the blood vessels, right?
Yes. It forces those blood vessels to physically dilate, improving coronary blood flow and reducing the mechanical strain on a stressed heart.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what these ancient healers recognized was the mind-body connection. They couldn't measure nitric oxide, but they understood the holistic system. You cannot treat the physical heart without addressing the emotional burden, and you can't heal a body that is bathed in stress hormones.
That's my favorite takeaway. It's the whole book versus the cliff notes. They refuse to separate the mechanics of the heart from the human experience of the patient.
So for our final stop, we pivot to survival. How did these ancient communities endure periods of absolute scarcity and physical depletion?
They turned to nature's most densely packed nutritional vaults. They relied on botanical anomalies, plants that somehow managed to hoard massive nutritional density under the harshest environmental stress.
Starting with moringa. In the Himalayan foothills, it's known as the tree that never dies.
It thrives in depleted soil with virtually no water.
Yet, its leaves synthesize more vitamin C than oranges, more calcium than milk, and more potassium than bananas. How is that even possible?
The cellular stress of the drought actually forces the plant to concentrate its protective compounds, making it an unparalleled source of bioavailable nutrition for communities facing famine.
And practically, the source suggests just stirring dried moringa powder into soups or smoothies. It's effortless integration. Then we have fenugreek. These seeds were considered so vital they were actually found buried in the tombs of ancient Egyptian pharaohs.
Both Ayurvedic and Middle Eastern medicine utilized fenugreek for metabolic stability during times of scarcity.
Right.
The seeds contain a highly viscous soluble fiber called galactomannan, When consumed, this fiber forms a thick gel in the gastrointestinal tract, physically trapping glucose molecules and severely slowing down their absorption into the bloodstream.
So it prevents the massive insulin spikes and crashes, stretching out whatever limited energy the body has. The culinary tip here is to soak the seeds overnight in water before adding them to bread or eating them alone.
Yeah, soaking them maximizes the extraction of that regulating fiber.
Now, we look at black seed or Nigella sativa. There is an old Arabic tradition that famously calls this specific seed a remedy for everything but death.
It's a massive claim, but the pharmacological data on black seed is incredibly robust.
What's the active compound?
The primary active constituent is thymoquinone. It's a fierce free radical scavenger that actively modulates the signaling molecules that drive inflammatory cascades. It's highly effective for respiratory health and immune regulation.
The reverence they had for it is amazing. And our source material closes the journey with amla, the Indian gooseberry.
It is the ultimate anchor for this discussion. In Ayurveda, amla is classified as arasyana, a supreme rejuvenator meant to preserve tissue integrity.
It's famous for its vitamin C content, but the source makes a really critical distinction. It's not just the sheer volume of vitamin C, it's the structural stability.
Right.
If you heat or dry a modern orange, the fragile ascorbic acid oxidizes and degrades almost instantly. But amla's vitamin C survives extreme heat and prolonged drying.
Because the vitamin C in amla is tightly bound to hydrolyzable tannins. Those tannins act like a chemical shield, physically protecting the ascorbic acid from oxidation. That unique molecular stability is why it has been a reliable, shelf-stable tonic in Indian households for thousands of years.
It's basically wearing a heat-resistant supersuit. So, looking at all 20 of these ancient foods, roots, and herbs, what is the big takeaway here?
I think the through line is that, true, enduring health is found in patience. We have to contrast our modern urge, the desire to swallow a pill in seconds and silence a symptom, against the slow simmering of roots and the quiet trust our ancestors placed in the soil.
It's an entirely different paradigm of interacting with your own biology. But I want to make something very clear to you, the listener. You do not need to abandon modern life or empty your medicine cabinet to benefit from this.
Absolutely not. That completely misses the point of resilience.
Right. You literally just need to start small. If you want a weekly plan for integrating these, just take it day by day. Monday, add a pinch of black pepper to your turmeric. Tuesday, let your crushed garlic sit on the cutting board for 10 minutes before you cook. Wednesday, swap your afternoon coffee for a cup of dandelion or tulsi tea.
Integration is about small, consistent chemical signals to your body. Reconnecting with ancestral observation just requires you to pay attention to those signals again.
Begin with one root, one leaf. Stop throwing away the instruction manual.
Exactly. And, it leaves us with a really fascinating final thought to ponder that builds on all this source material.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we've seen how our ancestors discovered these profound, complex biochemical miracles in common weeds like dandelion and nettle through patient observation, right?
Yeah, completely overlooked plants.
So it raises an important question. What completely undiscovered medicine might be growing right now in the concrete cracks, the forgotten industrial lots, and the untamed edges of our modern cities, just waiting for us to stop, look, and listen again?